So we say bye-bye to another draft class, but before we completely put this sucker in the rearview mirror, we got to hand out some draft grades. I already did the NFC earlier today, so you can go check that video after this one because we're talking about the AFC. A special thanks to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Thank you for sponsoring today's video. Remember, promo code Broshmo when you sign up, but we're going to be starting with the AFC East. I started with the NFC West last video, and now we're going vice versa, and I'm going to start with the Buffalo Bills. Now I'm going to be looking at all the picks. I'm going to be looking at all the trades. I'm going to take all that into consideration when I lay out my draft grade. But the Bills, I've been saying it for a minute. They're going to go with the corner at the back end of the first round with their pick set up with 56, and I think the other one was 62. I think it was 62. That by that time, I don't suspect that there's going to be corners available for them to take. So if they want to do it, they're either going to have to trade up into the second, or they're going to have to take one here, or maybe even move down. They decided to just take one here. Maxwell Harrison was one of the best fits to their scheme. I like his feistiness there out of Kentucky. He played the year with a shoulder injury, but nonetheless, I thought it was a good pick. Then they moved up. They did trade. They did end up moving up in the second round. They actually they move up to 41. So this is the Bears pick, and they send the Bears 56 and 62 along with a fourth. They end up getting a third round pick, which would be 72, and a seventh. They move up and get TJ Sanders. I thought they would look for more heft along the defensive line, though they ended up getting their heft, kind of, sort of. But they go with TJ Sanders, and I like Sanders a lot. He's stout. He can set an anchor. He can sustain himself in the run game. But it's what he does as a penetrator. Decent first step, but he's very sudden, very smooth. He can get after it. I figured this would be a defensive-heavy draft for the Bills regardless. But let's be honest, it wasn't the offense that was letting the Bills down last year. It was this defense. So I like the Sanders pick. They end up going with Landon Jackson, edge out of Arkansas. And I kind of pegged Jackson as a Buffalo Bill. I just thought it might have been done with one of their second-round picks, which again turned into one second-round pick. Nonetheless, he's available for them here at 72. And he kind of fits their criteria if you look at what they liked with guys like Gregory Rousseau, who now ascendant star, or the other guy they drafted in that class, Boogie Basham, who no longer on the team. Jackson, it fits that mold. He's got some length. He's got some strength. He's got some good tools, good first step. Does need some polish when it comes to his pass rush, but the creativity is there. He's a high motor player. I like this. They just straight up fully address the defense. They keep going on with the defensive line. Funny enough about this Deon Walker pick, or Deon Walker, defensive tackle out of Kentucky. So they traded with the Bears, right? They traded away initially 109. They had to trade back up with the Bears because they wanted to get 109. And they go with Deon Walker's, who isn't that hefty anchor. That's not his game. He doesn't have that lower body strength to sustain himself in the run game, to drop an anchor, to establish leverage. He's 6'7", for goodness sake. But he's a very flexible athlete. And if they're looking for someone to play on stunts, this is kind of their guy. So I don't mind them taking a shot on Walker. So those were all their picks in the first 4 rounds. If you're unfamiliar, when I grade these, I'm looking at rounds 1 through 4. Those are the significant rounds. If they get any value in rounds 5, 6, or 7, then I'm gonna mention it, and it'll help their grade. But it's kind of hard to reach in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. It kind of is, because you're just taking shots on guys you like at that point. But all in all, right now, I would say, hey, Bills, they're having a relatively solid class, even if it is kind of a joke that they traded 109 and then had to come back and reclaim it. It is. It's fine. It's fine. Jordan Hancock is very interesting. I haven't seen any Bills press conferences on their draft or anything, So I don't know what the vision specifically is for Hancock, because I think he's someone that can play on the outside. But at Ohio State, he was primarily a slot and sometimes played safety. So in my head, it's like, okay, maybe he's playing in the slot. Maybe they're looking to develop him as just general depth for the defensive backfield. Regardless, that's a good pick. I like that. Jackson Hawes, they get a tight end 3, a blocking tight end. That's A-okay. This was probably about the range I thought he would go in. Dorian Strong, I thought, was a steal. He is a perfect fit to Sean McDermott's defense. Very zone-heavy corner. It was zone-heavy at Virginia Tech. I like the fit. Could end up being a future starter there in the 6th round. Chase Lunt moves well. He's a developmental tackle. It's fine. He's also on the older side. Caden Prather, I wasn't exactly a huge Caden Prather guy. I kind of viewed him as a 7th round to priority UDFA. That's where he falls. Not really a dynamic player. Solid route runner. Good size. I'm okay with the pick. It was 240. All in all, I don't think there was a pick that made me go cuckoo bonanza, but it was relatively solid. It was a very solid draft. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give it a B+. Good on you, Buffalo Bills. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to, if you didn't know, now you know. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. Fins up, baby. Fins up. And I'm an unbiased Dolphins fan, and this is going to prove it. We go with Kenneth Grant at pick 13. Defensive tackle out of Michigan. We needed some more depth along the defensive line. Apparently, the Dolphins thought they needed a lot of depth along the defensive line. They grabbed Kenneth Grant, who's got that heft to him. He could play in the nose. It really helps out Zach Sealer. So I didn't mind that. If that was the top guy on their board, cool, go for it. I thought it was a fine pick. For the longest time, I've been crying out. I want Jonas Avenea. I want him to be the left guard. A guy that also has tackle potential, played left and right tackle while at Arizona, along with guard. So if things get a little hairy with Patrick Paul or Austin Jackson, or an injury happens, Avenea can kick out. I liked him. I thought maybe there was a chance we'd have to move up for him. Not this much. We end up going to pick 37. We have to throw away our 3rd rounder. And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. So we end up getting pick 37. We get a 5th, but we send them not only our 2nd, which we're swapping seconds. We send them that 3rd. We send them a 4th as well. I hate that trade. That's a dog water trade. And it sucks because it's for a player I wanted 100%. He was high on my board for players I wanted the Dolphins to acquire. I'm at the end of the day, it's like, cool, whatever. I guess we're not in this draft class. This is one of my biggest complaints with Chris Greer. He navigates the draft terribly. Terribly. Year after year, I always have qualms and problems with the Dolphins draft. Because now, without that 3rd or that 4th, you're not gonna be able to help the secondary in a big way. And we'll talk about it in a moment. Let's just talk about their 5th round picks at this point. We get Jordan Phillips. Again, we're addressing the interior. He's more of a run stuffer, so he could be there on early downs, but there's the upside of a pass rusher. You go to the Shrine Bowl and watch him. He was shot out of a cannon, getting a lot of wins. You go to his tape, I didn't see a lot of that. And then we finally address the secondary, right? We get Jason Marshall Jr. out of Florida, corner, who solid enough athlete, good size, has had an up and down career there at Florida. We get him in the 5th, a little earlier than where I had him, but I don't mind. To be fair, these day 3 quarters, you could have put their names all in a hat, just picked one out. That's kind of what we were talking about. I was kind of cool with a bunch of different corners here on day 3 because at this point, if you didn't get one early, you're probably not going to get one that's going to make a significant difference. Dante Trader Jr., safety out of Maryland. I was a Trader guy. He didn't test out well, which sucks, but you go to his film, And he doesn't mind getting physical, might not have exactly like the best size, but he doesn't mind getting his hands dirty, putting his nose in the action. There was a lot of praise for him at the Senior Bowl about some of his like leadership, his command. He's a former lacrosse player, so that's a fun fact. So I didn't mind grabbing him. To be fair, with the current state of our safety group, we got Ifeatu Melifonwu, Ashton Davis, Patrick McMorris. There's a shot Trader ends up being a starter. There's a shot. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. And then in the 6th round, we get Ollie Gordon, running back out of Oklahoma State. I'm kind of hoping they ask him to shed a little bit of weight. He was up to like 230 at the Senior Bowl. He did put on more mass last season, and he didn't feel like he had that quickness or that lawn speed. But he is someone with elite vision. He's a bigger back, so he offers a little versatility. Variety. There we go, in the backfield there for the Dolphins. We took Quinn Ewers in the 7th. Why not? Take a shot. We got Zach Wilson there. It can't be like much worse. At least it's someone with tools. I don't really mind. It's kind of a nothing pick. It's 231. Zeke Bickers. Again, we're gonna go in on the defensive line. Like Zeke Bickers, for his size at like 6'6", 321, tested out really well. But golly, he needs a lot of development. Really went in on the defensive line. I don't mind them going in on the trenches, but I really do wish we did something more with corner and safety. Trading away that 4th and 3rd round pick, it kind of soured me a little bit. At the end of the day, I like the players that we got. Maybe just didn't like how we maneuvered the draft. Again, Jonas Avenea, that was a big, huge win for me. I'm going to go with a B-. A B-. Look at that. Unbiased Dolphins fan. I'm just saying. I'm looking at reality here. All right, we're going to move on to the New England Patriots, who selected Will Campbell, 4th overall. It was expected. Is it a sexy pick? No. It's not Travis Hunter. It's not Abdul Carter. But you need to help Drake May, and this pick helps Drake May. So I was okay with it. Yeah, would it feel nice if you were able to trade back and still get him? Sure. We saw offensive linemen go off the board relatively early, though. Armand Membu went at 7 to the Jets. You had Kelvin Banks go at 9 to the Saints. Tyler Booker went at 12 to the Cowboys. Then you had, Gray Zabel went at 18. So they went early. So if you weren't going to give one here, Donovan Jackson at the back end of the 1st round went at 24. And then, of course, you had Josh Simmons and Josh Connerly Jr. Sneak in at the back end of the 1st. So, yeah, I think the Patriots were in a tough position, and they ultimately just said, let's just draft a good player that's going to help our offensive line. I don't care if he's a guard or a tackle. And I think they did that. I really like what they did in the 2nd at pick 38. They were just like, okay, well, let's just go ahead and draft Travion Henderson. Get some lightning. You got a little bit of the thunder, though it's a nimble thunder in Ramondre Stevenson, who struggled with fumbles last year. And now you get that home run threat. One of the better pass protectors, by the way, at the running back position as well. I didn't mind it. You could have made a case. You had Luther Burden still on the board here, but I'm okay with going with Henderson. Because then they eventually go with Kyle Williams, who I really liked out of Washington State. And he's more in the mold of a Stephon Diggs type. So let's bring in the speed. Let's bring in these guys that can separate. And Kyle Williams has that my ball mentality. He had a pretty solid week at the Senior Bowl. I remember I didn't watch him prior to coming in to the Senior Bowl, and I was really bummed because he was someone I really wanted to watch beforehand. Got a really good impression of him at the Senior Bowl, watched him after, loved the tape. I thought that was a really good pick by the Patriots. They did trade down a couple of times on day 3. Well, I guess before we get to day 3, I almost missed Jared Wilson. And they list him as an offensive interior. I think he ends up being a center. Probably going to eventually replace Garrett Bradbury. He's only a 1-year starter. He was playing behind Cedric Van Pran at Georgia. Looked really good. He was one of the most athletic players along the offensive line. Tested out really well at the combine. You can develop him for a year and have him be your heir apparent. So I like that these are all moves geared to help Drake May. And then we get to the day 3. They did have a couple of trade backs where they acquired an extra 5th. They acquired what was it? A 2026 4th round pick. They also had a trade. What was it at 80? No, they acquired what was it? They acquired a 3rd. Was it 85? Oh, you know what it was? Okay, I just put it all together. So they traded back to 85 and was able to pick up a 5th. And then they traded with the Chiefs, who moved up to go get a corner in Noel Williams. And then that's why it ended up at 95. So they traded back a couple of times with that other 3rd. Got it. There we go. It all comes full circle. So I think they did a relatively solid job maneuvering the draft. They grabbed Craig Woodson. A lot of people that, at least in my sphere, are big fans of Woodson. I think he's okay. At 106, it felt rich to me. You already have a lot of names there in the safety room, so I don't really think he adds much of anything. Kind of is what it is. With their other 4th rounder, they got Joshua Farmer. I thought that's much better. If you were honestly to flip Farmer at 106 and Woodson at 137, I would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. But Farmer, a lot of tools. You can develop that. So I thought they did a really good job for the most part with their significant picks. And then we get to the mid to late day 3. And this was incredible value. Incredible. You got Braden Swinson, edge out of LSU. He was 50 on my big board. He goes at 146. Golly. And this was the pick you gained when you traded back the first time from 77. Ultimate steal. I love it. I'm to be honest, their later round picks are kind of nothing. They spent one on a kicker out of the U by the way, Regardless. So cool. And you know what? It's better to spend a pick on a kicker in the 6th than it is in the 4th with a guy like Chad Ryland, who's right now kicking for the Cardinals. Marcus Bryant didn't really have an eval on him. Couldn't tell you much about him. Instead, I watched guys like Tolson. I watched Membu. I'm in the process of going to be watching Green. So I almost watched everyone else on that line aside from Bryant, but I heard he's long, cool, developmental tackle. They got a long snapper, great. And then they picked up a corner that I didn't watch film on with the final pick in the NFL draft. Again, they're picks of guys they like. I'm kind of cool with it. It's fine. At the end of the day, I really loved their draft. They went in and said, Drake May, don't worry, help is on the way. I only gave out 4 A+ grades, 2 in the NFC, 2 in the AFC, and this was one of them. A+. Phenomenal draft by the New England Patriots. And then the final team here in the AFC East is the New York Jets, who all around I think had a fine draft. They went with Armand Membu at pick 7. That was kind of my favorite. I've been projecting him there for a while, and they grabbed him. They kind of, at least on paper, completes that offensive line. Again, Aaron Glenn coming from Detroit, where they prioritized getting guys on that front, and they have one of the top offensive lines in football. I'm talking like top 2 or 3. I'm sure Aaron Glenn was like, we should probably do that. Then they grabbed Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU. I get the NFL was higher on him than I was. I kind of knew that going into the draft. Tight end was a kind of a big need. They had Jeremy Ruckert, but that was it. They snagged him. Cool. It's fine. I had him lower, but it is what it is. It's not like I had him significantly lower either. Then at pick 73, they get Azarie Thomas, corner out of Florida State. He's a great scheme fit for Aaron Glenn. He's very much a press corner. who might not have ideal launch speed, but if he's allowed to put hands on the receiver, he can help mitigate what he lacks in launch speed. It's a perfect scheme fit. Some people had him at the back end of the first after the Senior Bowl. Some people typically had him around top 50. I had him outside of my top 50, not by much. So this was good value. And then the fourth round, we got to talk about some of the fourth round stuff, right? So Arian Smith is a bad pick. Maybe he has turned over a new leaf and has been working on the jugs machine, because he had better hands at the Senior Bowl than he did his entire career at Georgia. He was a drop ball machine. He was literally just speed. And I guess if that's all you wanted, then cool, fine. But I had him at like 248 on my board. They took him at 110. I didn't love that. That was a bad pick to me. Malachi Moore, player that I love, but they traded up for him. I had him a little bit lower. I thought maybe they could have got him in the 5th, but he brings some leadership. He could work in the slot. He can also play safety. He played more of a traditional safety role this year. He's been a team captain for the last couple of years. So it's a good player. I'm not too mad about it. Like, they traded up for it, but it kind of is what it is. Oh, they got the Hurricanes linebacker. Hey, that's always fun. This was a little bit higher than where I had him, but he's hard hitting. I'm okay with it. And then at 173, they got another Miami Hurricanes player in Tyler Barron, edge. And I had him. He made my top 100. He was literally number 100 on my big board. You get him at 176. I don't know why, but the first thing that ran through my mind was like, oh man, this reminds me when they grabbed Michael Clemens, and he ended up being a very productive rotation player for them right off the bat. Tyler Barron gives me those same vibes. All in all, I thought this was a very good draft. Were there moves that I didn't like? Certainly. Did they take some players higher than where I had them? Most definitely. But it's a good draft. I'm going to give it a B grade. And just like that, every team in the AFC East had a higher grade than my Miami Dolphins. So I'm telling you, I'm unbiased. I'll tell you when I like something and when I don't like something. Let's move on to the AFC North. We're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens, who, golly, if they only had 2 picks in this draft and it was Malachi Starks and Mike Green, then awesome. It's all A+++++. They did a phenomenal job where they just waited in the first 2 rounds and let value hit them in the face. They got the best safety in the class in Malachi Starks. I had a top 20 grade on him. And then they waited patiently and ended up taking Mike Green, edge out of Marshall, who fell for obvious reasons with the character red flags. I had him as a top 10 player. He was 8 on my board. You get him at 59. Home run draft thus far by the Baltimore Ravens. And then they grab Emory Jones, which I'm like, fine. He maybe ends up as a future tackle for this team. I think maybe you can work him in as a guard and he could compete at that left guard spot that Patrick McCarry, he's now gone. So I saw a vision. I kind of like him better at guard too, but this was a little higher than where I had him on my board. And the Ravens then just proceeded, like, they grabbed some players that I liked, but higher than where I would have taken them. Like Teddy Buchanan, linebacker at Cal, very much a sub-package coverage linebacker. They took him at 129. I had him just outside of my top 200. Carson Vincent, tackle out of Alabama A&M, very much a project developmental tackle, which that's fine. That's kind of what he's stepping into, but he's got good length, good movement skills. I had him at 221 on my big board because, again, he's a project. He ends up going at 141. So, again, those are much higher than where I had it. They end up going with Bilal Cone, corner out of Western Michigan, in the 6th. I'm cool with that. I had a draftable grade on him. I thought he had a good Senior Bowl. They grabbed a kicker, Tyler Loop, out of Arizona at 186. We know what's going on with Justin Tucker. I don't mind them drafting a kicker as long as you're doing it with a late day 3 pick. If you really think you need to draft a kicker or a punter, do it in the 6th or 7th round. They did that. LeJonte Wester, wide receiver out of Colorado. He's smaller, probably more of a slot only, but it brings some definite elusiveness and shiftiness to the wide receiver core. Aeneas Peoples ends up I think a good pickup is a DPR pass rush only type of player on the interior. You bring him in and just say, pin your ears back and go after it. I think that's a good pickup. This was about the range I had him in, though, because I don't see him as an early down player in the NFL. Then they grabbed Roger Longerbeam, who I think could work either outside, but doesn't have the most ideal frame, but he plays with that stank. He plays with some nastiness. But probably more ideally is going to be a slot. Garrett Dellinger, it's pick 243. I thought I had an undraftable grade on him. He didn't do much to really impress me, but it's back into the 7th round. You get to reunite him with Emory Jones. I think I'm okay with it. I don't mind too much. All in all, they grabbed players I liked, even if it was a little bit earlier than I would take them, but that was all in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. Grabbing Emory Jones, I'm kind of okay with. Mike Green was a steal. Malachi Starks, you just sat back and did nothing, and Starks fell to you. That's kind of ridiculous. I'm going to give them an A. Even if they reached on some players on day 3, I don't hate it. There were players that I liked. So good on the Ravens, man. They continue to draft really, really well. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, which I'm going to be real. This isn't, I don't know how Bengals fans feel about it. Not one of my favorite drafts. They grabbed Shamar Stewart, edge out of Texas A&M. I get it. He's got a lot of tools. You're hoping you could turn that into production. I don't mind them taking a shot on him at 17. We saw edges starting to fly off the board. Mikael Williams. You saw Jalen Walker go was it the pick before? No. It was, so Atlanta took Jalen Walker. Walter Nolan then came off the board. So you started to see defensive line in general start to come off the board. So you kind of had to make your move. So I don't mind it. And it's a premium position. And then we get to the rest of the draft, and they decided not to draft premium position for the remainder of the draft. And by premium, I'm talking positions like quarterback, obviously the most valuable, but not needed for the Bengals. Wide receiver, offensive tackle. Granted, they need more guard help, which they addressed. And then like edge, pass rush in general, corner. They didn't really do that. They went with Demetrius Knight Jr., linebacker out of South Carolina. This was a little earlier than where I had him on my board, but he is a literal plug and play now. If they want to move or just release Jermaine Pratt, they can now do that. I was okay with that. Dylan Fairchild, this was a little bit higher than where I had him, but I get it. You want to get some protection at guard right now. Your guard position is PP poo-poo. So it was what it was. It was like, you know what? Fine. That's fine. Why are we drafting a second linebacker, Barrett Carter, out of Clemson? This was like, and again, the Bengals, this was the right spot for him. I had him at 128 on my board. He goes at 119. You drafted a linebacker already. Why? Why are we doing that? They end up going with Jalen Rivers, offensive tackle, probably more of a guard, out of Miami at 153. That was about the range. I think I had him at 177. But I mean, you already drafted a guard earlier. Can we take a shot on maybe corner, maybe some more edge? I don't know. Why not? And then they grabbed Taj Brooks, running back out of Texas Tech, who's a bit of a bowling ball, hits with some thud, but he's got some shiftiness to his game. I had him at 159. He goes at 193. So good value. Then I'm outside of edge. They didn't, which was round 1. They didn't pick premium positions. We doubled up on linebacker and guard. Okay, I don't really see the vision here. I don't really see the vision. I didn't like this draft. I really didn't. This actually might have been, I think, the worst draft class in the NFL. And I remember during the draft, I was like, man, it's really hard to think about a team that did a poor job in this draft. But if I had to name one, Bengals easily come to mind. And after I digest everything, I put it into my beautiful spreadsheet, I cracked down the numbers. I was like, yeah, Bengals easily had the worst draft class in 2025. As it stands now, again, a lot can change. Again, this is just some dude on the internet's opinion. And maybe we'll be looking back at this in hindsight and we'll be like, what a banger draft. But I'm going with the C-. I didn't like the draft. I just didn't. Sorry, Bengals fans. Love the Bengals, though. Kitty go meow. Kitty go meow. We got the Cleveland Browns. They definitely had the most controversial draft class. I thought they hit it out of the park to start it out. If you weren't going to draft Travis Hunter, fine. If you move out, you better get some good compensation. They did. They obviously got pick 5 in a pick swap for pick 2. They grabbed a second rounder, which was pick 36. Nice. And then they get a first next year. So now you are, if things are shaky this year at quarterback, you're in good position to just go ahead and say, yeah, no, we'll go and draft a quarterback next year because we can now maneuver. We can move up with 2 first round draft picks. So I really, really liked that. They take Mason Graham. He was a top 5 player on my board. I'm okay with it. To me, A++. We're feeling good. And then to start the second round, they go Carson Schwessinger, linebacker out of UCLA. Granted, okay, first linebacker came off the board. Forget Jalen Walker or whatever you classify him as. Jahad Campbell, he goes at 31. And you're thinking, maybe it'll be pretty soon the next linebacker comes off the board and we think there's a gap. There's a tier between Schwessinger and the rest of the linebackers in this class. So they grab him with the first pick in the second round, and it's like, okay, fine, I get it. You got stuff going on with JOK in the neck, unfortunately. They did end up grabbing a running back. I thought they might go running back at 33, so really you could switch these around and be okay with it. They grab Quinshon Judkins. They go for the Thunder. I thought they might go for the Lightning. I think I projected them to go with Travion Henderson, but they go with the Thunder. And Quinshon Judkins, he was one of the top 4 backs in this class, in my opinion. I like the pickup. Then we get to pick 67. They go Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green. You could do a lot of fun stuff with him. He could be a big slot, tight end 2, move him around, H-back. You're definitely going to have to be creative and scheme him up on stuff because, yeah, you could maybe play him in line, but he's a competitive blocker, but not necessarily the best blocker. They got him at 67. I had him at 68 on my big board, so good value. I'm okay with it. I was waiting for Shedeur to be one of these picks, but no, they end up going Dylan Gabriel at pick 94, which it's like, okay, he's firmly probably a backup, but he can be a high-end backup. Maybe he can be a starter. I just don't see him being a top half of the league starter if he ever got the chance. But he does give you some stability at the quarterback position when it comes to backup. So, okay, and they chose to pass on Shedeur for Gabriel. So seemingly, they are out on Shedeur. Okay, fine. So in my head, they're locked in on quarterback next year. That's what I'm thinking they're about to do. They go with Dylan Sampson in the 4th round. I like it. I don't mind it. You already had the Thunder with Quinshon Judkins. Now you bring in the Lightning with Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Straight up. Sorry if you are a dynasty owner of Jerome Ford. Sorry. And then with the final pick, they actually moved up. They traded away a 5th and a 6th to move up 20 spots, 22 spots specifically, and grabbed Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. They ended the slide, and my question is, why not just take him at pick 94? Which you'd be like, well, he made it to the 5th round. That's why. But it's like, you now look at it. It's like, okay, you can't keep both of these guys. One of these guys are going to hit the practice squad. You got Flacco there as the backup for Kenny Pickett. You're going to keep one around as an emergency QB. Because during my stream, I forgot Flacco was even on the team. And if you put one on the practice squad, then ta-ta, goodbye. Maybe that guy's gone. So, I mean, I guess there is a quarterback competition now, maybe a backup quarterback competition in Cleveland. And since it's such a minimal investment, because think about this, back into the 3rd round, 5th round draft picks at quarterback. There's no investment there. If you want to go get a quarterback next year, you still can. Just feels things could be a little bit harder with the things that surround Shedeur Sanders. Not necessarily him, but his family. And what can this do from a perception standpoint? I don't know. It's going to make for fun TV. As it'll make for fun TV. They drafted a lot of players I liked, even if it was a little early for our Schwessinger. I wish outside of quarterback, I wish they went after more positions of value. Like corner would have been nice. You have 2 corners that are free agents after this year, but it kind of is what it is. At the end of the day, this is a good draft, even if there is a little bit of quarterback controversy for quarterback 3 on the team. It's a good draft class. I'm going to give it a B plus. I could rock with this. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the final team here in the AFC North. As with their first pick, they take Derek Harmon. By the way, hey, much love out to Derek Harmon. If you're unfamiliar with the draft story, he gets drafted and he has to rush off the phone because his mother actually would go into a coma, be put on life support shortly after, and then would pass away later on. So wild sequence of events. And as a father myself, you just want to see your children succeed and be rewarded for their hard work. And his mom got to see that. That's awesome. And you could take some solace in that. So prayers out to Derek Harmon and his family. I'm just glad his mom got to see her baby boy be a first rounder. And he's going to Pittsburgh. He's a good fit. This is your heir apparent for Cameron Hayward. I like the pick. They didn't force quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is probably coming to town. I'm okay with it. They didn't have a 2nd round pick. I am taking into account trades. And that 2nd rounder was used to get DK Metcalf. That's kind of good. So again, we're taking into account some of these trades. And then they grabbed Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa, in the 3rd round. He's a perfect fit for Arthur Smith and that outside zone blocking scheme. He ran a lot of zone blocking at Iowa. And he's here at 83. He was 75 on my board, 79 on my board. So the value's right on the money. I like the pick. Jack Sawyer in the 4th at 123. I still had Sawyer pretty high relatively. I had him at 95 on my big board. They get a player who's going to be a good rotation player. Very productive at Ohio State. He might not have ideal length. He might not be an elite athlete, but he brings an elite motor and elite production. So I'm okay with it. This is a Pittsburgh Steeler type of player. And then in the 5th, they go with Waya Black. They list him as a corner. Kind of strange. Defensive tackle, nose tackle out of Iowa. Can you imagine a corner being 6'6", 336 pounds? I can't. So he's going to fill in and be like the nose tackle. He's going to be in that rotation there. Again, there's not a lot of guys built that way in the draft that can act as 0 techs or play at 0-1 techs. So if you're going to want to get one of those guys, you probably have to go early on day 3. And they did. They grabbed him. Will Howard makes it to the 6th round. Basically no pressure. Developmental quarterback. Can he be the future? Doesn't really matter. Bring Aaron Rodgers in if things are okay. Maybe this allows you to still draft a quarterback next year. It's just very minimal risk, potentially good reward. They grab Carson Bruner. Butchered the last name. Apologies. Linebacker out of Washington. His father is actually, I believe, isn't he a scout for the Steelers? But he also was drafted in the first round by the Steelers. He played tight end though. His father. This is a cat that can play. He was Washington's special teams MVP back in 2023. Became a full-time starter for the first time in 2024. However, he was like the third or fourth leading tackler the years prior. So he was very involved in the rotation, a guy that has a nose for the football. I kind of liked it here. And then Dante Kent, didn't get to him out of Central Michigan. He's been on my watch list for 2 years now. He was on it for the 2024 class. Didn't get around to him in the summer. Didn't get around to it during the year or after the season, but it's pick 229 for a player I've heard a lot of good things about. Looks like a good pick to me. So all in all, I thought they had a fairly good draft. A lot of this hinges on Aaron Rodgers. Are they going to sign, or is this Mason Rudolph's team? But it was a good draft. It was a good draft. There wasn't much that I disagreed with. A lot of fine players were selected. I'm going to give it a B+. Again, nothing really blew me out of the water, but it didn't have to. You could just go out there and draft good players and call it a day. And I think they did that. They draft good players. So call it a day. Let's move on to the AFC South. We're going to start with the Houston Texans, as they ended up not even having a first round pick, right? They end up trading out of the first round. Apparently, they wanted Donovan Jackson with the first pick. He got snagged the pick before by the Minnesota Vikings, and they decided to trade down with a quarterback needy team like the New York Giants, who gave them a third round this year and a third round next year. Also gave them pick 34, which they then turned into Jaden Higgins, wide receiver at Iowa State. Luther Burden was on the board. I thought maybe go with him. He's a little bit different than what they currently have. Higgins was still like a top 5 wide receiver for me. I think he was either 5 or 6. I'm not mad at the pick. Now you just got 2 big wide receivers who can go up and provide catch radiuses of the size of a freaking garage door. So you got to love it. They do end up getting their offensive tackle of the future, hopefully, in Ariante Ursary. They did have to move up. It did cost them a third rounder, but that's fine. They already had acquired a third rounder in the trade back. So, and tackles were flying off the board. Like if they didn't get Ursary, I think one of the next tackles taken was like, again, I'm not Milam. He's a guard. Maybe Charles Grant at the back end of the third, I believe. I'm going to take a quick gander. Yeah, no, if they didn't take Ursary, it was going to be pretty slim pickings. So I think they made the right call there. Yeah, I think they made the right call. So I like that. That's just knowing the consensus board, knowing where you're at, what you need, and how to get it. They grabbed Jalen Noel in the third at pick 79. Funny enough, for a former teammate, not just Jaden Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson, who's on the roster as well, I believe. I think he's still there. So that's just kind of wild. You got a whole Iowa State wide receiver room. But they needed some speed. They needed someone that could stretch the field vertically with legit speed. He does that. He can do that from the slot. I like that they went out and were like, hey, we need a help. We need to address. We need to help our quarterback. We need to address whether it's offensive line or playmaker. And they did that. They would trade down a couple of times in the third round. They eventually get Jalen Smith, corner out of USC. Kind of feels like maybe he's corner depth, maybe a slot depth as well. This was higher than where I had him on the board. Little rich for me. Is what it is. He's a D'Amico Ryans guy. Just plays with that nasty demeanor. And then they moved up in the fourth. They end up trading what? They acquire 116 and a 7th because they had to trade up from the 6th round from pick 179. So they had to give a third next year To go get Woody Marks? That's not a good trade. What are we doing here? I love Woody Marks. This was too high for him. There are, in my opinion, better running backs on the board. And the trade is pretty offensive to take a player who, again, you take him at 116. I had him at 217. And you burnt a third-round pick next year for that. I don't love that. But I do love Woody Marks, and I hope he proves me wrong. Jalen Reed ends up being good value, safety out of Penn State at pick 187. They go with Graham Mertz. Okay, sure. Backup quarterback. Hope he never sees the field. At 224, they grab Keontae Hamilton, more of a pass rusher, someone who's still developing his body. He showed up at Rutgers at 230 as a wrestler. Wrestled at Rutgers, by the way. And he has put on about 70 pounds. So he's still developing that anchor and that feel. So for now, very much a pass rush only player. Luke Lachey is good depth and good value at 255. All in all, good draft, not great draft. I got a little sticky icky here with Jalen Smith and Woody Marks. But I really like what they did at the beginning here. I'm going to say it's an above average draft. I'm going to give them a B. But they drafted players that have the chance to definitely make this a much better grade. Move on to the Indianapolis Colts. As Colts fans rejoice, you grabbed your king. They grabbed Tyler Warren. It was Tyler Warren or we riot. As a matter of fact, Colston Loveland went off the board prior to Tyler Warren. It was like destiny. The Colts were meant for Tyler Warren. And I like what they did at pick 45, JT Tuimoloau. He's I think a very high floor player with some good traits and good tools. So I'm like, okay, I'm digging this draft thus far. And this is the part where everything falls off a cliff. Then they select Justin Wally, corner out of Minnesota. I like Justin Wally. You know why? I like him so much. He made a video that I made prior to the draft listing my top 10 deep sleepers for day 3. I liked Wally. I had him just outside of my top 200. You take him at 80. A little rich for me, a little rich. And then in the 4th, they end up going with Jalen Travis, tackle out of Iowa State. Again, tackles were kind of already flying off the board. You're looking around and you know what? Oh, that guy's long. He went to the Senior Bowl. I'm down. And I like Jalen Travis, former Princeton kid. He's very much, I think, a work in progress. To me, this was rich at 127. I had him closer to the 200s. So, yeah, we kind of fell off the rails there. But we got right back on. DJ Giddens, pick 151. Had a top 100 grade on him. He's going to be a very good backup running back to Jonathan Taylor. Typically at the back end of the draft, I don't mind. Do whatever you want with your 6th, 7th round picks. I don't know why they got Riley Leonard. You already have Danny Dimes on the team. Why do you need Danny Dimes light? And listen, in my head, if this front office and coaching staff is going to be retained, it's Anthony Richardson or bust. If you're turning it over to Danny Dimes, he ain't saving anybody's job. So why are we drafting Danny Dimes light and Riley Leonard? Good college player, though. Tim Smith is your typical Alabama defensive lineman. He's going to stick around the league for a minute. Might jump around between teams, but he's a solid player. Hunter Wohler, safety out of Wisconsin, he's built to play around the line of scrimmage, whether that's at box safety or if you want to line him in the slot or as a dime backer. He thrives around the line of scrimmage. Very good in the run game. At the end of the day, I like what they did with their first 2 picks. Fell off the rails. Okay, cool. I like the running back pick at 151, but all in all, it kind of feels like a below average. That's not true. A slightly above average draft. I don't think while things got a little sticky, I don't think it's enough to warrant a C. So I'm going to go with a B- because I do like the TJ Tuimoloau, the Tyler Warren pickups. While Justin Wally, while this was way higher than where I had him, he was a player I liked. I just liked better on day 3. And then Giddens, I thought was a good pickup as well. So we're going to go with a B-. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's actually quite a bit to talk about here with the Jacksonville Jaguars because they moved up. They moved up and acquired Travis Hunter. They paid a quarterback premium to make that move. But we can argue that when you're dealing with, I'm going to say it, a generational player, because we haven't seen a player of his type that was this dominant as a wide receiver and a corner in college football. You're dealing with a very rare two-way player who may legitimately be able to play 2 ways in the NFL. You just got to figure out what that snap count looks like. You're kind of betting on that. So they snag him. It cost them a first rounder next year, cost them a second this year, and obviously pick 5. I don't mind them taking that shot, taking that risk. I think that's okay. They end up grabbing Caleb Ransaw, corner out of Tulane. I hear he's going to be more of a safety. He could also play in the slot. I actually think the slot's where he fits best, but you could play him at safety as well because he's got really good athleticism. And to be fair, their safety room kind of sucks anyway. Then with the next pick, they grab Wyatt Milam, offensive tackle out of West Virginia. Now, it is important to note that they had pick 70 and they moved back, acquiring a 3rd next year, 2 3rds next year, and pick 102, which they used to move up to 89 to grab Wyatt Milam. That's a good trade. I think they maneuvered the draft pretty well. They were able to rip off the Detroit Lions. I don't know what the Lions were doing. I hated their trades. But they were able to rip off the Lions, grab 2 3rds next year, and then 102, which you eventually turn into 89, which is Wyatt Milam. He's going to play guard for you. I like that pickup. He was 74 on my board. You get him at 89. At 104, you grab Bashol Tutin, running back out of Virginia Tech. A little bit of the lightning there. This is within the range. I'm fine with it. Jack Kaiser, this was earlier than I'd like, but this linebacker at Notre Dame, he moves well. He can maybe work in sub packages, but he's going to bring a lot of special teams experience, and that's a big plus. Round 6, I loved Jalen McLeod. He's a bit of a tweener. He can rush off the edge, but he's got less than ideal size. Doesn't have a ton of experience in coverage. He was more of a spot dropper, but a player I don't mind taking a shot on. He made my sleepers video, and the Jaguars didn't take him on day 2. Ryan Lane, the 3rd out of Navy. I wasn't a big fan of his, but pick 200. I don't really care too much. Jonah Monaghan, I was a fan of his. He's got limited length, so he was always going to be a center, but he played all over the place for USC. Right on the right side, left side, guard, tackle. He did it all, but he is a center in the NFL with good movement skills. LaQuint Allen ends up being, I think, a pretty solid steal. I had him at 134. He goes at 236, and he gives you just everything in terms of being a pass catcher. He can pass block. He can pass catch. He's got a huge catch radius. Gives the quarterback a big window to throw to. And he's a hard runner. Might not break a lot of tackles, but he won't stop churning the feet. At the end of the day, while it's kind of hard to wrap my mind around, that's not true, but it's a gamble. I think it's a gamble worth taking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to go with it being a B+. Giving up a first next year, I think it is a chance worth taking. So it looks like it's going to be Travis Hunter primarily playing wide receiver for the Jags, and that's A-okay. That's A-okay, because to me, he was probably wide receiver 1 in this class. He was up there. Him and Tetero, You know what I would say? I would say he's wide receiver 1 in this class, and he was kind of uncontested corner 1 as well. So I get taking a shot on it. I get it. We got one more team in this division, and it's the Tennessee Titans, who we knew it. They were going to be, we've known it for over a month now. The Titans were taking Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. The Will Levis era is over, probably for the good thing. Brian Callahan gets to get his guy. Cam Ward was unanimously the top quarterback in this class. If you got the first overall pick, you typically want to swing on that quarterback position if you don't have an answer to it. It's the most vital position on a roster. I would argue Cam Ward was worth the top 10 pick. So I'm A-okay with that. And then they grab Femi Aladejo, edge out of UCLA. He has played linebacker primarily in college, whether it was at Cal or UCLA. And it wasn't till after the first 2 games of the year that the Bruins started playing him at edge. Not a lot of body fat on this dude. He was raved about around the Senior Bowl. At the Senior Bowl, he kept winning. I thought he was Donovan Ezeraku for a minute because they were wearing the golden helmets. I think he was 5 and Ezeraku was 6. And when you're in the stands, it's hard to tell numbers. Every time I was like, Ezeraku, another win. Oh, wait, that's Aladejo. Who is this guy? I got to watch him. Massive Senior Bowl. Very good athlete. Still needs to polish up. Again, he's been playing off-ball linebacker primarily for the better part of his career, but he is moving in the right direction, and just again a player you want on your team. There was nothing but praise about how he brought the energy to just everybody. I do like this. I gotta mention the trade here because they traded back from 35, got to 52, which they used on Aladejo. But they got a 3rd rounder. They were missing a 3rd round pick in this class, and they got one. And they used it on Kevin Winston Jr., who was safety 3 for me in this class. I had a top 50 grade on him. Extraordinary value. I think he was one of the safest players you could have taken in this draft class. Didn't have a missed tackle in 2023. Oh, what about 2024? He got hurt with a partially torn ACL that he tried to play through in the 2nd game of the year. So he was kind of out of sight, out of mind for people. He's a hell of a good safety. When we got to day 3, you could honestly... So they got Chim DK, wide receiver out of Florida at 103. This was a little earlier than where I had him. But in hindsight, if you look at where they got Alec Iamaner, wide receiver out of Stanford, who fell probably because of some knee concern. He had some knee injuries early in his career at Stanford. And then, might as well get into it. He tore his ACL his senior year of high school. And then his freshman year at Stanford, he tore his ACL, MCL, and meniscus. Had a red shirt. Hasn't been a problem in the last 2 years for him. I'm just putting that out there. That's why I'm thinking he may have fell. But if you switch Iamaner with DK, I'm okay with it. I really am. So I like that they're getting wide receivers. You get a lot of speed with a DK who might be a slot only, and then Iamaner who is more of a prototypical X that can win downfield. Gunnar Helm, solid pick at 120. He's Jared Wiley to me, so cool. He's a good tight end too. And then in the 5th round, they just grabbed players that I liked. I love Jackson Slater, guard/center out of Sacramento State. He ends up going at 167. He was at 117 on my big board. I think at some point he might be a starter for this team. Love the movement skills. Very tough player. Marcus Harris. Fun fact, he made my sleeper video and they took him in the 6th round. I love it. He could play outside. Maybe they play him at safety. They list him here as a safety, but I think he could probably play, he could play outside in the slot. Maybe he can play safety. Regardless, another guy with ball skills in that impressive Cal defense this past season. And Khalil Mullins, running back out of Michigan. He's a former linebacker, a lot of special teams experience. And he's just kind of a bruiser at running back. I think there's a lot of ways he makes this team. So at the end of the day, I looked at it. I was like, you know what? This is a hell of a good draft. It really, really is. It ticked a lot of boxes for me. They drafted a lot of players that I liked. I was looking and they didn't reach on anybody. If anything, they got some good value in guys like A.O. Manor and Slater and Kevin Winston Jr. That was a good trade. This is one of the, in my opinion, one of the best classes, and you got your quarterback of the future. It's an A+. A+ grade for the Tennessee Titans. I came away very happy. Let's move on. It's AFC West time, and we're going to start with the Denver Broncos, who took Jahdae Barron, corner, out of Texas with their first pick. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. I think this is a good scheme he's coming to. He can play safety as well. He gives them some defensive versatility. He was 14 on my board. They get him at 20. You could argue, whoa, they need playmakers. Well, they addressed that on day 2. Albeit, I didn't necessarily love what they did on day 2, but I was okay with it. RJ Harvey, he was at 84 on my big board. They take him at 60. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. If they were looking for the Lightning to Audric Estime's Thunder, then he is the Lightning. Pat Bryant, this was a little bit higher than where I had him, but he is a good wide receiver. He feels like a Sean Payton wide receiver. May not have tested out that well, but he's a pretty shifty route runner that can create that separation, and he plays with my ball mentality. So I like the player. Did feel a little high for me. They did have one more pick in the 3rd round in Savion Jones out of LSU. Makes a ton of sense. Kind of feels like a John Franklin Myers type, who is a free agent after this season. So, okay, I get it. Even if I felt like some of these maybe were a bit reachy. They do grab Quay Robinson, edge out of Alabama, in the 4th round. That's fine. I was a little bit lower on him just because, well, he doesn't have a lot of production to his name. Hasn't played a ton of snaps. This year was the first year he actually got significant playing time, and even then, he missed some of the year with injury. So you're dealing with a guy with a lot of tools. They drafted a punter. Cool. It is what it is. It was in the 6th round. I'm not mad. Caleb Lohner? Bro, I didn't watch this guy. I'm going to take a quick look. Apparently he was a basketball player and just started playing football. As a former college basketball player, Lohner fits the stereotypes, uses his body well to box out down the field, attacks the ball at its peak, but lacks route running refinement. So taking a shot on a toolsy guy. It's pick 241. Do whatever the hell you want, I suppose. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about that one. At the end of the day, it's like don't love this draft class. It's fine. I wish they probably could have got a better wide receiver than Pat Bryant, and I'm still okay with it. Just he's a Sean Payton guy. It makes sense. So I'm gonna give it a B-. Again, they grabbed some guys that I didn't necessarily love. It is what it is. You hear that? You hear that, guys? You hear the door? That's because you know the Kansas City Chiefs are about to be up, and Gojo's got to get in on. All right, Gojo, I'm about to do a draft grade for the Chiefs. You want to say hi to the people? Here it is, Gojo coming in for his Chiefs. You didn't know, resident Chiefs fan here on the channel, Gojo. I'm a Dolphins fan, so sucks living with this dude. But he's got, look at this precious little smile. Look at that. You know, we got Gojo merch on the channel. Go check that out. But let's go ahead and get into it with the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't worry. I promise you're not going to hate the grade. You won't, I promise. So the Kansas City Chiefs seemingly got their tackle of the future with Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I like the pick quite a bit. You could argue he could have been a top 10 player It would have been tackle 1 if he didn't get hurt. It's a patellar tendon injury. Sometimes guys don't quite come back as efficient as they were prior to the injury from that. Also, there were some character concerns. I didn't really hear that or see that. The NFL draft, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors sometimes. There's just news out there that's just not true. They did move down 1 spot and grab a extra 5th rounder in the process. Still got their guy. Cool. I love it. Pick 63, they grab Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle out of Tennessee. I got some qualms with Lott just because he only had more than 300 snaps in 1 season, and that was back in like 2021 or something with Arizona State. He's been largely a rotation player. He's primarily more of a pass rusher, though you could argue he's the best pass rushing interior player in this class. And I thought there might have been a chronic knee issue there, which maybe led to minimal snap counts. You're pairing up with Chris Jones. I don't think that's scary as hell. So I am mad. Ashton Jeanty, edge out of Louisville. This did feel high for him, and that sucks. I liked this guy quite a bit. He doesn't have ideal length. He tested out faster than I thought. He's a pocket pusher. He'll hit you with a good bull rush. Feels like better Mike Dana, right? Could be, but I had him as a 4th round pick, or at least an early day 3 pick. You get him at 66. That felt quite a little bit high. And then the Chiefs got on the move because they were like, we wanted to get a corner, and corners have flown off the board. I think with the pick just before this, Jacob Parrish went to the Bucs. So the Chiefs moved up. They sent a 4th rounder next year and pick 95 to move up 10 spots. They grab Noel Williams, corner out of Cal. I had a 4th round grade on him, but he was my top corner among the day 3 corners. So you're basically getting your pick of the first corner that would go in the next round. That's a-okay. He really fits Spags' system. Press corner, a lot of ball skills. Don't mind it. 4th round pick, Jalen Royals. This is one of my favorite picks in all of the draft. I had a 60. He was 62 on my big board. They get him at 133. This feels like this potentially could right the wrong that was Sky Moore. That's the type of player we're talking about in Jalen Royals. And then in the 5th round, they get Jeffrey Bassa. I actually like that pick quite a bit. He was a green dot guy at Oregon. Kind of basically got everyone in the correct formation and alignment in the front 7 there. So he's someone that you can trust and be sure your defense is in position. Even if he doesn't have the splash plays in coverage or the splash plays in the run game. I think you're okay with that. I had him much higher on my board. I think he was also a top 100. No, he was 101. He goes at 156. Rashard Smith, I had at 150. He goes at 228. If you were looking for a receiving back, he was one of the best in the class. Former slot receiver for the Hurricanes. Transfers to SMU. They put him at running back. Super excited. They just drafted a bunch of players I liked. And I think they maneuvered the draft fairly well enough. Like they knew, okay, if we want to go get a corner, we have to do it now. Jalen Royals is an exceptional value. Jeffrey Bassa, exceptional value. Simmons could be huge value. I think Chiefs are going to chief. I'm going to give it an A-. I really like their draft. Even with the guy like Gillette, who I'm like, okay, well, this is higher than where I have him. I see the fit, and I like it. And then we have the Los Angeles Chargers, the Superchargers. They go with Amari and Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. I thought Jim Harbaugh always took him for hey, we can take these journeymen or day 3 guys and get some good production out of them. Well, I guess to hell with it. Just give me a big boy back. I see how well my brother John's doing with Derrick Henry. I wouldn't mind, getting one of those. So, yeah, I like the fit. It's a fine fit. Is it the most sexy pick in the first round? No. But it's a fine fit. And then they grabbed Trey Harris in the second round at pick 55. He's got a little bit more of that dog in him downfield than a Quentin Johnston, which kind of feels like they're maybe out on at this point. So I don't mind it. I like the pickup. Jamari Caldwell kind of feels like this was a little high to take Caldwell. I had him a little bit lower on my board. But then again, if you were to flip him in the round 4 pick of Kyle Kennard, who I had in my top 100, you'd be like, yeah, no, those are good picks. But Caldwell, he's very stout. He can drop that anchor and play that nose tackle position while also being a very good pass rusher. He's just hard to contain. Kyle Kennard brings some energy in that rotation and could be an heir apparent there to Khalil Mack. They grabbed some speed at wide receiver and Keandre Lambert-Smith. Had some drop issues, but he's got quite the highlight reel when it comes to catches. Rondé Gadsden Dolphins legend, Rondé Gadsden. This is his son. He goes in the 5th round to be a big slot, to be maybe a tight end too. I don't know. Maybe this is their plan for what Tyler Conklin's going to be, and you're hoping to develop him in that way. Maybe. We're in the 6th round. They took some guys I liked, some guys I didn't. I wasn't a big Branson Taylor guy out of Pittsburgh. I think he was a little banged up this year. RJ Mickens, I absolutely loved. I thought that was some good value for a guy who's going to be a quality safety in the league. I could see him being like this Xavier Woods type around the league where you're like, you know what? Sure, we could go out and get an upgrade at safety, but we know Xavier Woods at least is a solid starter, so we don't have to really worry about that position. They grab a corner / safety, Taquez Bridges out of Florida. He played corner at Oregon. He played safety at Florida. I think it could kind of work both ways. Just get him to camp and figure it out. But this was pick 256. At the end of the day, they had some reaches that I like. Again, I felt Caldwell, this was a little higher than I'd be willing to take him, but you could flip that in the Kyle Kennard pick and it's okay. Omari Hampton, maybe not the sexiest pick. I mean, sexy for fantasy owners, but run back is swinging the other way. And you know what? They went out and got pass catchers. It's a good draft. It certainly is a good draft. I think I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to give it a B. It's solid draft. I'm not mad at it. You can't, I wouldn't really say there's that one pick that I'm like, oh, absolute steal, home run, going to be a star. You can make that case for Hampton though. Yeah, I guess you can. It just depends on how much you value that. And then our final team is the Las Vegas Raiders. They took Ashton Jeanty with the 1st overall pick. Cool. I like it. I get it. It's running back. It's going to kind of be caught into it's going to kind of catch some of the similar shade as Amari and Hampton, the Chargers, except for the Raiders are doing this in the top 10. We are talking about a generational-esque prospect when it comes to Ashton Jeanty. I don't know if it's probably right up there with Bijan Robinson. I would say Jeanty is more put together when it comes to vision. Robinson had a little bit more with size. But I'm cool, man. Jeanty is going to be a difference maker. I love Jeanty. Listen, if you are right now a dynasty owner with pick 101, it's Jeanty among the rookies. There's no reason to make any other picks. Jeanty's an easy 101. I really like what they did in the 2nd round. They moved back a couple of times. Let's try to follow this. So they originally had pick 37, and then they moved back to 48, pick up an extra 3rd. They do send a 5th back. I'm trying to remember, was that who that trade was with? 48. It wasn't Seattle. They moved up for Nick Emanuwari. You did have the Bills move up. They moved up at 41. So who was it that moved up to 37? Oh man, making me have to go look. Because I just don't have it on the top of my head. 37. 37. I mean, I legitimately could. Oh, here it is. Oh, F. I know why I didn't want to. I know why I didn't want to remember it. They shafted my freaking Dolphins. Son of a gun, dude. Screw you, Raiders. Dang. Yeah, we moved up for Jonas 7A. Rough. So with pick 48, they then proceeded to move back again. They moved back for a pick 58, so they moved back 10 spots and pick up another third. So now they have a plethora of thirds. Keep in mind, they spent a third round pick to get Geno Smith, which we take into account here. That's big. That's quarterback. So what did they do after trading back twice? Jack Besh, wide receiver at TCU. I wouldn't mind a little bit more speed in the wide receiver room, which, A, it's fine. We'll talk about it in a little bit later. But Besh is such a good wide receiver. He knows how to create separation even if he isn't the fastest guy. Plays with my ball mentality. I like it. Darian Porter, corner out of Iowa State. He might be an older prospect, but in terms of tools, length, size, speed, oh, he's got it. He just played 400 snaps for the first time in his career. Wasn't even a full-time starter last year at Iowa. Keep in mind, he was a wide receiver transfer or convert. So he's still relatively newish to the position, but there's a lot to like here just because he's kind of freaky. And I thought worth taking. Caleb Rogers, offensive lineman out of Texas Tech. He's probably a guard. This is higher than I would have taken him, but I get it. There's a lot of love with the versatility. He played center and guard at the Senior Bowl. He played tackle back at Texas Tech. So I could see why there was some allure to him, but they made it up with pick 99. They grabbed Charles Grant, who's got a lot of good tools, and he doesn't even have to start it right away. You can continue, you just develop him. So really enforcing the trenches to make sure that this run game is going to be nasty, to make sure Geno Smith has time to throw, and you even got him another weapon. Matter of fact, you go to the 4th round, and they got him another weapon. They were like, you know what? We got Trey Tucker. He's small and goes fast. Can we get big and goes fast? They grab Dante Thornton Jr. 6'5", 205, ran a 4.30? Golly. So speed kills. Tonka Hemingway, I like the player. I think he's going to be good in the rotation. Didn't get the buzz as some of the other guys on that South Carolina defensive line. And I mean, to be fair, I had them as higher prospects as well. He's about a little bit smaller, a little bit, he's not as heavy as TJ Sanders, who is around that like 295. And he didn't nearly test out as well, despite being lighter than Sanders, but he still tested out pretty well. You go watch it. There's a lot to like about his game. But screw it. They grabbed JJ Pegues, and we could call it even here. He might not be like the fastest dude, but he gets after it. He's a smooth mover. I mean, there's a reason why he had like 7 rushing touchdowns, picked up 10 or 11 first downs. You could have a lot of fun with this type of player. Speaking of having fun with a variety of different players, Tommy Millette, quarterback at Montana State. He's going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. They announced him as a wide receiver. However, Cam Miller, quarterback out of North Dakota State, they announced him as a quarterback. So, developmental guy. He's going to be on the practice squad. Funny enough, they faced each other in the FCS championship game. So that's kind of wild. Competing quarterbacks there. They end the draft with Cody Lindenberg. That's a good pickup at 222. He might not push to be a starter, but I think he's going to be a good special teamer. He has a lot of good tape out there. All in all, I thought it was a really good draft. Even if you were to look and be like, you know what, I don't really value running back too much. at pick 6. They did such a wonderful job with the remainder of this draft. You can't give it anything lower than an A in my opinion. The only reason I'm not giving this an A+ is because, well, they swindled my Dolphins and I'm petty as hell. Sorry. But let me know who were some of your favorite draft classes in the comment section below. That's it for the video. Let's give a special thanks to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Remember, when you download the app, you're signing up. Promo code Broshmo. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.